What's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. Hope your week's off to a great start. We got a big episode coming at you. I'm your co-host, George Boussalis.
And I'm your other co-host, Ricky Liordi.
And you are tuned into the Pals podcast. This week, we had a well-known Toronto, a well-known guest on the episode. He's a big name in the fitness community. Josh Adamson, also known as Aussie Fit. He is the owner of Lift Corktown. He's co-founded some other stuff, some other health and fitness related products in the movement space, and he is a Nike certified master trainer. Josh has a super interesting story. I mean, we knew he was an interesting guy, to say the least, but we did not expect to kind of unpack all these things that we did on the podcast, and it was truly a really enjoyable conversation, very eye-opening, and just really interesting. Talks about how he just, his unacceptance of failure and moving to Canada with basically no money to pursue a career or life in snowboarding, I guess, and just talks about the power of movement and being healthy and active, and share some other fun stories with some of his great clients. So really fun episode, guys. Give it a listen. Check out Josh on Instagram at AussieFit. My pal Rick.
Yeah. I'd like to give a special shout out to our sponsors, our presenting sponsor, Cottage Springs. Cottage Springs is a local Canadian company that's headquartered in downtown Toronto. All their beverages are 100 calories. They're gluten-free, sugar, sweetener-free. They just launched their first vodka water this year in 2 flavors, raspberry, lime, strawberry, kiwi. The vodka sodas, watermelon's my favorite, as we've said. They're available all across Canada, but in Ontario at your local LCBO. So go check them out and give them a follow online at Cottage Springs. We'd like to give another shout out to our baby CAST. CAST is the Objective Assembly of Public Opinion. And we achieved this by utilizing anonymous voting. And it's a project that me, George, and Dave have been working on. You've heard about it for numerous weeks now. We're in the beta version right now, but we will be launching publicly within the next few weeks. So if you haven't already had a chance, send me, George, or even at Create Your Cast on Instagram, a DM, and we'll get you set up on the beta. There's still some first names available, and you can be one of the early adapters onto this new platform. So check it out at www.createyourcast.com or online on Instagram at createyourcast. And Georgie, what do we say?
LFG.
Let's go.
Yeah, hold on. Tell me if you guys see the recording. Should be good.
We're good.
Good?
We're live.
All right. Let's go.
Josh, welcome, buddy. It's good to have you on the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Ricky's officially not the fittest guy on this podcast anymore.
That's it.
So,
I'm just gonna start it right off.
Okay, so, go ahead.
Josh, obviously you're from Australia, and yep. I was reading online that you moved to Canada to snowboard.
Originally, yeah, when I was 21, I was. I'm now nearly 36, so it's crazy. It's been a long time.
Well, where'd you get the idea to move to Canada for snowboarding? I highly doubt there's much snow in Australia, if any.
I'd never seen snow before in my life. I literally, I just love board sports. So I grew up like surfing, skateboarding, the occasional wakeboarding, but mainly like, the ocean style lifestyle. And I got into having my own personal training business back home in Australia, like really earlier on. Like I was like 18, 19. I was like working 16-hour days, and I just kind of got sick of it. And I was like, I need to have a break. But I know we got a long time here, but this story could go on forever and ever. But long story short, I met this guy. He was a trainer, and I was kind of in like I got into personal training, and I was kind of going down the wrong track. And then I got into personal training. I'm like, okay, I'm shifting my life in the right direction. And then about 6 months into me being a trainer, I met this other trainer, and he was just into about like waking up at 4 a.m., going surfing and like going on hikes, climbing mountains, just all this crazy stuff, didn't drink alcohol. And I was like, this guy is incredible. And he just has like the best life. And he started inviting me out on these surf trips and stuff like that. And instead of me going out partying till like 6 a.m. in the morning, I'd be waking up at like 4 a.m. and my friends are still out partying, but I'd be surfing and like having these crazy experiences at this beach called like Byron Bay, and there'd be like dolphins next to me while I'm catching waves. The sun's rising, and I remember him telling me after like 3 months hanging out with him, he was like, yeah, I'm gonna go on this like snowboarding tour like around the world. And I'm like, what? I'm like, oh, that's crazy. I never even thought about snowboarding because like we don't have snow. It's just never even something that crossed my mind. So I started to watch videos. I'm like, where you going? And he's like, oh, I'm going to Big White in Canada. And I was like, where's Canada? Like, and I just had no idea. And yeah, I literally went home and started researching about snowboarding. And I just looked up to this guy. His name was Owen. I looked up to him a lot because it was like I wanted to live my life the way he was. And he was just such a good dude to all his friends, his partner, and just so very inspirational. And he left, and then literally I just Googled Canada, and I was like, best snowboarding in Canada. Googled it, and Whistler came up, and I literally sold everything, and 3 months later moved to Whistler.
Wow.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's a crazy story.
Yeah.
So wait, how old were you when you moved to Whistler?
I was 21. I actually, yeah, I was 21. Yeah.
Oh shit. That's a pretty big decision to make at 21. I mean, like Ricky and I at that age were just finishing like university. I mean, we didn't even figure out what jobs to have yet. You sold everything and moved to Canada.
Yeah, Australians are like, we travel a lot. If you've traveled, we're everywhere. So it's like, it's kind of pushed on us. Because I remember telling my dad, I was like, yeah, thinking about going to Canada. He's like, I've been wondering why you're still in Australia. He's like, you need to go out and have fun. Like my dad and my mom both started really heavily traveling later on in life. Like we kind of grew up pretty poor. We didn't have money. But then like as us kids, I got two older sisters. And as we kind of got older, my parents started to make better money, and they were able to travel. And every year they'd go to like Indonesia, and they'd go to Bali, and they'd, Malaysia, and then they just started experiencing this kind of life when in their 50s. And my dad's like, he'd be scuba diving, but with like 18, 20-year-olds. And he's like, I wish I did this earlier on in life. He's like, you need to go and you need to experience that before you have like kids and marriage and like all that sort of thing. He's like, get out there, travel, have fun. And I was like, all right. And yeah, that was all I needed. That's all I needed to hear.
That's awesome, because especially when you're young, like 18, 21, most parents are, I don't want to say concerned or worried, but a lot of parents would be like, if you're going to pack all your stuff, sell everything you own and move to the other side of the world, they'd be like, everything okay? So it's good to know that your parents were supportive on that.
For sure. I mean, there's a whole nother side of this that I got kicked out of home when I was 17. So like I already lived out of home. But that's when I got into personal training. My parents started to see me going in the right direction, where I was like way over there, like in the bad side of the world. You know what I mean? Like, and that's where it's pretty crazy when my parents come over here and kind of see what I've done, and where I was going as a kid to where I am now is a completely different person. And everyone over here just doesn't know that other side of me. And I left that in Australia.
Well, it's really cool, right? Because you kind of get a fresh start, and obviously we want to get into sort of have you on. I mean, you do a lot right now. It seems like you have a lot going on and a lot of I guess like accolades or titles, if you will. But even before that, we get to that part. Like when you first moved here, or I guess to Whistler at 21, was any part of you scared? Did you like early days? Did you regret it, or right away it was like the best thing ever?
Like, excuse my French, but I was shitting bricks. I had never left I had never traveled on my own in my life. I had never had to make new friends. I'm actually kind of like I not now. I'm like more mature, but when I was a kid, I was like very shy. Like if I didn't know people, like I just wouldn't speak to people, and that was a whole new thing for me. So I remember just sitting on the plane, and I was like, the plane's taken off, and I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. And I was just like, what am I doing? Like I've done the wrong thing. Like I don't know anyone. Like I didn't even know. I didn't have a winter jacket. I wasn't even prepared for the weather here. I didn't know what -5, -10 meant. I was used to 30, 40 degrees. Like I had never experienced anything around. I've never experienced zero, let alone minus 10, 20, 30, you know? So I literally had like a light jacket, and that's no socks. Like I only had ankle socks, like just stuff you wouldn't think of. Like, and even that, I didn't buy long socks for me, like until 8 years of me being over here. Cause I thought if I bought long socks, then I'm going to stay and commit. Like it was weird, but anyway. Yeah. To go back to your question, I was terrified. I was crying actually on the plane when it took off. I was trying to hold it back. I'm like, you know, like head down. I'm like, people can't see me cry, you know, like I was like, what am I doing with my life, you know? And there's I've had many terrible moments, and I wouldn't say it's terrible, but like life-changing moments like that. Sorry, I'm at the front of my gym. People walk by.
No worries. I love it. Yeah, I just picture you on the plane with like hoodie on, big jack dude, just sitting there like holding back tears.
Minus the hoodie, it was a tank top, but yeah.
Love that.
And weirdly, I was listening to a Coldplay song, which just makes you blubber like a baby. Whenever I listen to you put Coldplay on, you're just gonna start crying like a child. Like, let alone leaving like Australia. You're leaving this world behind you, and you just got the weight of the world on your shoulders. Coldplay comes on, and you're like, holy crap! Like, what is? It was terrible. Like, and I can't even listen to that song right now just because it brings like that moment back in my life where I was just terrified.
I love that.
People are gonna be looking at your, like, people who know you, I'm sure, from the gym. I'm guessing you have a pretty tough persona when you're in the fitness world. And if we're gonna see this Jack dude on social media and hear the story of you crying coming over the plane, I'm like, there's no way I believe this story.
Yeah, I'm a big teddy bear at heart.
Well, I guess so. Then, I mean, even before this stuff in Toronto, now, like, what brought you from Whistler to Toronto? Just
so I was actually dirt broke, like straight up dirt broke. Like I had $800. How much was it? Okay, anyway, so I can't remember how much I had. I had enough money to buy the plane ticket to come to Whistler, to come to Toronto, because I was flat out dirt broke. Like I was like, I need to make money. So I was in Whistler. Google was my best friend, and I was like trying to figure out where the most amount of gyms were in Canada, because I'm like, I'll kill it at any gym. Like I know this world. I will crush money. Like I'll be able to make the money I need and then go back. So then I looked up what gyms were in Canada, and I stumbled across Good Life. They had the most amount of gyms, and the most densely populated area was Toronto. So I was like, okay. So I was like, VIP Good Life gyms, Toronto. And the Union Station one came up. There was one at Union Station. And I'd never been to Toronto, but I was just like, all right, let's give them a call. So I called up Good Life Union Station. I was like, I want to speak to the fitness manager. And I'm in Whistler at this point. And her name was Lynn. And she answered the phone. She's like, hi. And I'm like, hi, my name's Josh. I'm from Australia, but I live in Whistler. I'm going to be in Toronto in 2 weeks. And I'm honestly, I just was super cocky about being a trainer back at that point. I'm like, I don't know what your sales are at that gym, but I'm probably going to smash them. And like, I was just like, she's like, you came across so arrogant. I thought it was a joke. Like, and I was just like, dude, I needed money. And I was like, I knew how to make money in the gym. So I got all my gear together, had enough money to buy a plane ticket, and I didn't have any accommodation. I didn't even have a visa. So I had to book at a flight center with cash, because I came from Australia with cash money in hand. And so I booked my flight at the flight center, came to Toronto, arrived at the airport, didn't have anywhere to stay. It was 9 p.m. at night. And then I just went to the information desk and I was like, are there hostels in Toronto? And so I started calling around to see if there was any beds. And 3 hostels down, no beds. And then I finally contacted High Hostel on Church Street, and they had vacancy. And I was like, cool, I'll be there in like 30 minutes. And they're like, just catch this bus down. So I got off the Royal York, walked from the Royal York to Church Street with my snowboard bag and my travel case, and literally lived there for like 3 weeks. And the next day I went into the Good Life and I was like, hi, I want to speak to Lynn. And she came to the front desk and I was like, oh, I was that Australian guy that like called from Whistler. She's like, honestly, I thought that was a joke. She goes, I can't even believe you're here right now. And And I was like, yeah, I want a job. I was serious. I'm like, I need to make money. I literally had $364 to my name. Like, I remember that specifically. I got off the plane with $364 cash, no Visa card, nothing. Like, I was dirt broke, and had just enough money to buy a couple of days or the week at the high hostel, and then started work. And that first month, like, obviously I had no friends, no job, no place to stay, and I was just hungry. So I'd show up to work at 5 a.m. every day and leave at 10 p.m. every day. And I just stood at the front desk, and anyone that walked through, they were gonna see me, and they were gonna get a greeting from me. And I printed out this big list of like name, email, phone number, and I'd be like, "Hi, my name's Josh. I'm one of the new trainers here. I'm like, are you interested in a free personal training consultation?" And I got a list of like hundreds of names, and then it was just like, after that, send them an email, book the appointment, get them through, do a fitness consult, do a fitness assessment, and then tell them, figure out what their goals were, tell them how I could help them. And yeah, the most that Good Life had sold before me was $4,300 in a month. That was the record of that gym. I sold $36,000 that month of training.
So you crushed it. Just crushed
it. All Toronto, like, I feel like 6 years. Well, no, how long I worked for Good Life? 4-5 years straight. I was in the top 10 Canada wide for sales. And then Patch like came down to me, and he was like, "Oh, how are you doing this? How are you successful?" I'm like, "Bro, I don't have any friends. Like, I'm just at work all day." Like, I literally didn't make a friend. And this is what sucks about Toronto. And I've been here so long. Obviously, I have a huge community of friends and everything. This is what sucks about Toronto is no one is willing to like step out and like take you in as a friend, because everyone has their own little cliques. So I was here for 3 to 4 months and didn't have one friend. No one would friend me or hang out or like do anything. Like, it sucked. Like, yeah, it was terrible. That was the worst 3-4 months of my life, hands down.
But at least it set you up for your success down the road, right?
For sure. And like, I hit rock bottom so many times. So because that $364 went down, because with Good Life, I sold $36,000. My commission check wasn't going to come for a month. So I kind of had to like really struggle, and like broke down crying so many times. I was like, I have no friends, I have no money. I couldn't afford to even buy fruit. I was living on rice and pasta sauce, and that's all I ate every day, because I couldn't afford anything else.
That's, man, what's so interesting though? Like, I mean, we didn't even ask this. But based on what I'm hearing, but it does seem like you just have kind of that entrepreneurial, like, hustle, go-getter spirit, right? I mean, coming to a country like that, so back to your point too. So Ricky and I both traveled quite a bit. I actually did a pretty big backpacking trip a few years ago, and like, I never had to be in a random country and starve, so to speak, like you did. Like, I mean, I've been in foreign countries by myself where I was kind of like, what the hell do I do here? All that, and that can be a little bit daunting. But I can't even imagine. I'm sure most people can't imagine what it's like to come with nothing, barely the money to your name, and have to just scrap to survive. So, I mean, now we see the product of where you came, so we can, I mean, obviously see that you have that entrepreneurial hustle and that spirit, but it's got to be tough to stay really motivated back in those days. Like,
yeah, and I remember I had a return ticket, because when you come into Canada, you have a return ticket. And I remember one night, so I ended up getting this place, and the first place I lived in was like a crack den. It was disgusting. I paid $300 a month rent. Now, can you imagine the type of place that's $300? Like, this was disgusting. I lived in a den, like this little crack in a wall. There was a 2-bedroom apartment. 2 people slept there, and I had this crack in the wall on this ripped single mattress with no sheets that one of the guys found in the dumpster from downstairs. So it was this single mattress that I was sleeping on from the dumpster, and it was horrible. Like, I literally just was crying one night, and I was like, I have no money. I'm sick of like eating rice and pasta sauce. I went from making 6 figures a year, like cash, as a teenager, like 19 years age, like cash in hand, and now I'm like eating pasta sauce. I have no friends. Like, no one wants to hang out. Like, what sort of life? What am I doing with my life? I'm like, but I was like, I have a return ticket. I can go home. But the problem is like, if I went home, I failed as a man. I failed to be able to provide for myself. Like, and I couldn't handle that. Like, I was like, no, like I have to stay. I have to, like, I'm a man. I should be able to make money to like pay for rent and food, like the bare essentials in life. It's like, how can I not do that? I'm failing. So if I went home, then I just failed. And I also couldn't call home and ask for money because my parents kicked me out of home. Like, I had this thing against them that I was like, I don't need you anymore. So I kind of like, I was like, yeah, you kicked me out of home. Well, I don't need you either. So I had no one to fall back on. Like, I was just like, it had to work. It had to work. Like, I had no other choice.
Man, kudos to you, because they say when you hit that rock bottom, that's when you really, characters are defined, right? And it's something where I hear you telling this story, and you can even see the passion in you, where it's like you refuse to fail. You're like, I'm not gonna fail. There's no part of me that wants to. And what were you telling yourself on those days where you're in bed, crying to yourself in that, disgusting little mattress? What did you keep telling yourself? What was it that you told yourself that got you through those days?
So there was this, I lived in Mount Pleasant in this like government housing like complex. This is the place I was talking about. And I used to sit in the park and watch people play tennis. And I tell clients this story to this day. And I used to watch people play tennis. My Sunday would literally be sitting on a park bench looking at squirrels, because I was like, these animals are awesome. I'd never seen a squirrel in my life. And I
forgot they don't have squirrels in Australia.
Yeah, I just watched them scamper around. And this is what I did for like months, because I didn't have friends, right? So I'd sit in the park, and I sounded like such a loser, but I was a loser. But I was setting myself up for winning. So I'd sit in the park and I'd watch people play tennis. And I was like, you know what? One day I'm going to have one friend that I can play tennis with. And I'm like, one day I'm going to be living in this spot, and I'm going to be able to eat a peach. I'm going to be able to eat fruit because I'm going to be able to afford a piece of fruit. And I'm going to be able to have this life where and I just think of the things that one day I'm going to have that. And I knew I was going to have it, but I just got to get through today. And then I got to get through tomorrow. And I got to keep doing what I'm doing at work, because that commission check's going to come. I'm going to make that money, and I'm going to be able to buy a bag of fucking peaches. Sorry for swearing. My sponsors aren't going to love that. But I get so fired up. It's one of the biggest things on social media. I have to pull back the words so much. But I'm going to be able to afford those things. I'm going to have that lifestyle. And I just kept thinking about that. And to this day, it's like, that's what I still do. Like, I talked to my fiance, I let her into those thoughts. And like, I sit here who I am now, and I'm thinking about one day I'm going to have that. I'm going to be doing this. We're going to have this. Like, I'm already thinking that. And there's no doubt in my mind that I'm going to exactly what I was thinking about this morning of one day I'm going to get that, because it's the same thing as when I was sitting on that bench watching people play tennis, and I'm going to be able to eat a peach and play tennis with someone. Now, I've never played tennis with someone still in 15 years, but one day I will. One day
Josh,
I will.
give us a call, buddy. We got you.
Friends.
This summer, me and George, you come play tennis with you, buddy.
So my business partner, they play tennis. They're like, come out for a game of tennis. I'm like, one day. Like,
it's really interesting because, like, based on what we see and what we know of you, seeing the what you've accomplished, like, you would think that, okay, you're not starving anymore, you don't have that, so you've kind of made it. But it also seems like that hunger and that drive and all that knowing, like, not to say failing, but like not having anything and coming from rock bottom, that keeps I'm assuming that keeps your fire going every day, knowing that I have to keep working harder so I never have to go down to that and be in that situation.
So with me, there is no made it. Like, there is no like end goal, because it's like, for me, I get fired up on the process. So I get fired up on like the things that I need to do every day. So it's like, it's the same when someone comes in and be like, I want a six pack. I'm like, you're going to get that six pack, and then you're just going to want something else. But what you're going to love is once you have that six pack, you're going to look back and you're going to be like, all the things that you had done to change to get there. And that process is what we need to glorify. So glorify the process rather than the result. So I just get excited about learning new things and becoming the better version of myself, like, rather than the end goal, because I don't have an end goal. I just want to keep being better.
Well, So you said, actually, I was looking at one of your posts, and you said there's a more recent one. You talk about you've been like 20 years of spent, like, bettering yourself and doing all this, putting all this time in improving. So I guess that's been your journey. But are you someone who does set goals that you want to achieve, or do you just keep working at it every day and then just the process kind of fulfills itself?
For sure. So like, I get excited about things, and I go 100 miles an hour with it. I'm very extreme. So for the last year, I've been really like, for the last 10 years, I've pretty much been bulking with my nutrition. I've just been on a constant bulk. I was focusing on powerlifting. I only wanted to be strong. That's all I cared about. I didn't care about aesthetics. I didn't care about I just cared about one, I needed to eat to be strong, and that's it, and business. So in terms of training, right? So the last year, I've you know what? I want to focus on nutrition. I also have Crohn's disease, so that's another obstacle that I kind of have to battle with my nutrition. But so I just wanted to really figure out sticking to for instance, I hate saying this, but sticking to a calorie goal, it to be in a deficit. So I'm I want to experience this world, because I've never really focused on the calories that I eat, and I don't care about the calorie number, or I'm not obsessed with that or anything like that, but I care about micronutrients. So it's for instance, it's what does my body need in order to optimize liver and thyroid function? Because if those are functioning optimally, then I'm just going to be a fat burning machine. So I started really researching into micronutrients to help optimize my internal organs, and not really care about what I'm doing with training. I kind of fell back into what my first thing I fell in love with, which was bodybuilding within fitness. So I haven't even done any I still deadlift, squat, bench, and whatever, but nothing near what I used to, because it's just to do the movements and to get a pump now, rather than I need to hit this percentage to hit this number to because I my progressive overload, and I'm in this wave, and blah blah blah, really scientific with strength training the last 10 years. And now it's just you know what, I'm gonna hit chest today, and I'm gonna do whatever makes my chest feel good.
I
But no goals with training, but just with nutrition more than anything. And right now I'm just experimenting with carb cycling. So I've basically been in a deficit for a year. And there's 3 different categories that make you qualify whether you can, have refeeds and stuff like that. So so I just got my DEXA scan done. I don't know if you guys know the DEXA scan, but it's the most accurate way to test your body fat. It's a 6 to 8 minute scan, a X-ray of your whole body, and it tells you bone density, body fat percentage is the main one why people go. But Tim Ferriss and authors like that speak about it as the best way. Anyway, got my DEXA scan done, and and basically it told me my body fat percentage, which puts me in a category. Now I can kind of do refeeds, and I'm doing every other day. So every other day I'm having an extra 500 calories of carbohydrates only. So it's kind of but now I'm it's interesting, because I'm seeing what it's doing to my body, and I'm starting to feel fuller, and my muscle. It's just interesting to see oh, I'm going to change this for my nutrition, and what does it do with my body? And your body, my body's a science project the last year. It's really cool. I love it.
That's actually what I want. That's what I wanted to ask you. So I guess now your career and your health, I guess, perspective of it, you've moved more towards just experimenting, trying new things, rather than being really stringent and focused on I got to do this and I have to do this. More so just trial and error kind of thing.
Yeah. So really experimenting with science around nutrition, and with training, it's just off the cuff. I have zero program. For instance, today I was I'm going to bench, because I like to bench on weekends. And then I did and then I was after I benched, I'm oh, what am I going to do now? And then I was oh, I'll do some dumbbell presses, maybe sets of 15 to 20. And then I did that, and then I did some push-ups, and that was my workout. I really don't care. This is as long as I get some heavy, get a little bit of a pump, and that's it. But we have been very relaxed on the training side of things. I train at least 5 days a week, but I never get fired up. And if anyone's seen me deadlift, or I used to put that stuff out there all the time, I get so angry where I can punch walls and get super fired up, and then scream, throw the barbell around, whatever, just because I get crazy fired up to lift those weights. And I can. That's why I created this facility, is to create an environment where people don't feel stupid to just like go full send. Like, you're going to come in here and you're just going full send as soon as you come in, like 100%. But now I don't do any of that. So I kind of even said to Jess, my fiance, I was like, it's kind of nice just staying at like an intensity level of like a 2 or a 3 rather than maxing out at a 10 and having to get fired up. I don't get fired up. Like, I was and a part of that actually is another thing that I've gone into this year is a lot of meditation. So it's more of like health, like really like using every part of the health and wellness industry to create this like overall well-being within myself, because it's not just about, oh, I'm a powerlifter, or like I eat to be a powerlifter. It's like, well, what's this meditation stuff about? And what about stretching? And what about yoga? And what about weightlifting? What about the body weight stuff? So it's like finding there's so much beauty in all of these different like areas of fitness, and like taking those the best parts out of that and kind of just experimenting.
I want to ask him, Ricky, is that kind of how Move Coalition came about? Is that what it encompasses as well? And that's why I believe you're the co-founder of Move Coalition.
Yeah, so Move Coalition actually started because it's a bit of a sad story, but my best friend, that he was like a big brother to me, he hung himself in his parents' backyard and he killed himself. And it was brutal. Like, it was really tough for me. And it's even tough for me to talk about it this day. And it happened just before the gym opened up. And he has severe depression. I became friends with him when I was around 16 and he was in his 20s. He was older than me. But he was like my big brother. So I remember his name was Mark. And everything that I have today and everything of who I am and the good human being that I am today is because of him. I was honestly like a terrible kid. I was a terrible human being in my teens, and I started working at this spot and he was there, and he saw that side of me because I'd open up to him about it, and he just like coached me in a way and be like, you got to stop hanging around that sort of stuff. You got to stop doing that and start being like this. And Mark is actually gay. So he was the first gay friend I ever had in my life. And I'd never met anyone gay before that. I grew up in suburbia. So, and what's crazy is his husband, who is still alive, does drag. So I became friends with this gay guy. And then when I became 18, I was going to drag shows. And I was just like in this whole new world of like just accepting everyone for who they are. And it was just like, rather than like, you know, what nationality, what sexuality you are, it's just like, who cares? If you get along with someone, you get along with them, you know? So, and that type of like acceptance is from him. And I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for him, because I was a very closed-minded kid. So Mark hung himself due to severe depression. He was borderline schizophrenic. And I found out literally just like while we were doing construction with the gym. And obviously that was really tough for me. But then we opened up the gym and it was just so much stress. Like I was always so kind of like cocky. I'm like, yeah, I'm a great trainer. I'll just open up a gym myself and I'll kill it because I'm a good trainer. Being a good trainer doesn't make you a good business person. And even though I might have a great clientele, owning a gym is just, it's another ball game. And I'm very grateful for my business partners for that, because we all have different strengths. And if it wasn't the three of us, Left wouldn't exist in the way it is. We all have our different strengths and stuff. So the gym opened up and took a lot of stress over me. So I couldn't really deal with it. I couldn't really deal with Mark's death. And I didn't. I thought I did. You know, I cried, you know, and then like I was sad and I was like, oh, that sucks. But then 2 years ago, my work started to free up a little bit. And I wasn't working these crazy days anymore of like, you know, open to close kind of deal. And then it kind of hit me. And I was like, I had a full-blown mental breakdown. Like I was just like depressed. I didn't want to work out. I was just like, just doing all sorts of like self-sabotaging, you know, things to myself, and not drinking or drugs. Like I've actually been sober for over 8 years, to be honest. But like just things that didn't help me. And I was really struggling with it. And I was like, you know what? I want to give back to the world what Mark gave to me. And if Mark was alive, I was like, what is something that I could give to him? And the one thing that I have to give to the world is is through movement, is motivation, support, and inspiration. So I was like, I want to give out some free content to people so they can follow along with. And I'm not talking people with depression. I literally started creating videos as if it was Mark. Like I was like, Mark could do this workout. You know what I mean? Like he didn't go to the gym. It was very self-conscious. Because he's like, oh, if I go into the gym, people are going to look at me because I'm overweight, and they're going to be like, what's this fat guy doing? Like he'd say that to me all the time. I was chatting to him every week and up until he died, you know. And he was like, you know, I'm going to get. And the last message, I go and read it, you know, every now and then, and it's he's like, you know, one day I'm going to get super fit. I'm going to be fitter than you, and like he's like teasing me, and it's like it's pretty funny because we had some banter. And he's like, hey, I'm going to look better than you. I'm going to be able to outlift you and all this sort of stuff. And it was very positive. So it was like, and then 3 days later, he hung himself. And I was like, it was crazy when you like look at these messages. And I go back and read that message. And I was like, was there some sort of code here? And what it came down to, I could, you know, and then at the end of the message, it was like, you know, I just want you to know though, like, I really love you, like from the bottom of my heart. I love you so much. And it was almost like this goodbye. You know what I mean? Like it was him just saying, you know, no matter what happens, just know that I love you kind of deal. And so I go back and I read that. I'm like, that's so intense. You know, he knew, like, you don't just hang yourself out of the blue. Like you plan this. Like my dad worked in mental health his whole career. He's now retired. So this is the type of stuff that he dealt with. And it's like, that was planned. He knew that he was, and what's crazy is his husband actually caught him couple of months prior in the garage with the noose and the chair, and Mark was standing there and he's like, what are you doing? And like Brett, his husband, was like, what are you doing? And he's like, nothing, go away. And he's like, and he obviously like started screaming at him and everything like that. But yeah, so many stories, and I go on rants, but like the Move Coalition basically started to honor his life, and now it's kind of turned into like and that's where actually the logo, you look at the logo, the icon, and it's an M, and there's different peaks of the M. And M is for Mark, M is for movement, and M is for mental health. And I've never released that. I've never said anything like that. But I always look at the logo and it has the M for Mark. And I know that. And that's for me. I don't really care about, like, you know, people just like, oh, that's a cool icon. They don't really know what it means. But you know, there's different peaks to that M. You'll see the M, and there's the peak of the M. It shows that there's peaks and valleys within mental health. And we do have highs and we do have lows. But that, that's kind of where the icon has a lot of meaning to it, you know, that I've never told anyone. It's just like, yeah.
Really? Well, yeah, I appreciate you sharing that with us. Like, obviously, we've discussed mental health on this podcast numerous times. I've battled depression myself. And I want to, you know, you mentioned that you were going through tough times, especially with Mark's passing. How did you deal with it? What were things that you did? For me, one of my escapes, I guess, was going to the gym. That's what I did to focus on me. That was my zen, my serenity, my escape from reality. What did you do?
And that's just it. So what you just said is movement is the most underutilized, potent antidepressant that is available for free. It's free. And so I wasn't working out. I had zero. When you're depressed, and mine was situational. You know, you have clinical and situational.
Yeah,
clinical is like you're born with it, and depression does run in my family. My family members, you know, take medication and stuff like that. But mine was situational. It was like I was depressed about this situation. So I was like, you know what? I had zero motivation to work out. And I'm like, I'm just going to go into the gym and I'm just going to move. I'm just going to move. That's all I'm going to do.
Yep.
Rather than sticking to this program where I have to hit 10 by 3 at 85% of my training max, a back squat, and then I have to hit all this accessory and all this other stuff. And if I don't do the program, then I'm not taking the steps to achieve my goals. And like, I used to put a lot of pressure on myself like that. But I was like, I'm just going to move. And I don't care how long it is. And I don't care what I do. And that's what I've been doing the last year. Like, I obviously have my days. I'm like, today I want a quad dominant day, so I'm going to do some squats and some whatever. Today I want a hinge day. Today I want a bench day. I want to hit back. You know what? Today I feel like hitting arms. So my week is balanced because I always think, okay, what have I done the last 3 days? Okay, I haven't hit this muscle group in a while. Maybe I'll do that. But I don't even think about what I'm doing. I just warm up and then I know I'm going to hit back. So after my warm up, I'm like, what do I feel like doing? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do some bent over rows. What do I want to do? Okay, I'm going to do 10 reps every 2 minutes for 5 rounds. And then after I finish that, I look around and I'm like, what else do I want to do? Like, it's very like juvenile. It's very beginner going to, you go into Good Life for the first time and you're just like, what machine's available? I'll sit on that and pump it a couple of times until I feel like moving on. But and that's what I did. I literally came into the gym and I was like, every day I'm going to move. And for like 20 minutes, just 20 minutes, just movement. And it could be 20 minutes of stretching. Who cares? And after every time I moved, it was unavoidable to get a dose of PMA, positive mental attitude. And I say it to everyone, it's unavoidable. After you work out, you just feel better. That's a part of it. You get that heavy dose of PMA. So I was giving myself a dose of PMA every day, and just from that movement and doing things. I couldn't control my emotions, but I could control my actions. So I'm like, I'm going to move. I'm going to eat better, because when you eat better, you just feel better. And it's not about like, because you look better. It's just, you're doing something good for yourself, And they're the two things that I could control. And then slowly over time, I started to feel better. And then I was like, you know what? I'm upset because of Mark. I need to do something to honor his life. And that's when I came up with Move Coalition. And this is 2 years ago. And I actually flew a good friend of mine from LA to film some content. We filmed 30 videos, and I've never released these videos. But it was kind of like a therapy thing for me. I was like, yeah, we're going to do this thing. We're going to release all this content. We filmed all the content, and it wasn't exactly the way I wanted it, so I didn't release it. And I still have it sitting there. But then I started working heavy again, and then that kind of took the back seat. Then the pandemic hit, and I'm like, you know what? We're going to release the content how I want it to, because I was very new to filming. And that's a whole another, I don't film myself, and I have a videographer and editing team and everything like that. But I didn't know what I wanted to see on the camera. So I'd been through a round of it. I knew what I didn't like with that, and then I could like fix it for this round. And that's when I started releasing the stuff on YouTube, like the newer content. And now we're getting into yoga, and I want to get some meditation stuff. I'm actually working on launching a website where it accompanies everything. So it's because fitness and wellness is so much more than like I'm a bodybuilder. Like meditation like is so crazy what it can do for you. And I've just been really messing with that the last year. And true wellness and health and wellness, it's a bit of strength training, it's a bit of yoga, it's a bit of meditation, and it's a lot more intellectual, like when you start to really break it down. So I'm working on developing a package and then launching that with everything,
That's really
awesome.
Cool. Honestly, man, that's a great story. That just took us on a whole, like, that's a deep story, but that's also very cool. That's something super, I mean, obviously very unfortunate to hear, but that's great that you took that channel and brought something positive that also can hopefully, shed light on, I mean, mental health is a big thing. We just had, like, Let's Talk It was recently, and something that, to your point as well, like, with the gym, it can be a daunting experience for some people, and, maybe they don't get exposed to the benefits of movement, to your point, of something so simple. And the fact that you're showing people, like, and I'm a big, saying like me as in you're a big solid dude who lifts heavy weight, but if movement does, just a little bit of movement does this kind of positivity for you, even if you can't get off your butt off the couch and you can do it in your own, living room, you're scared to get in the gym, just do a little bit, and you're kind of sharing that with them. That's really inspirational, man. And honestly, kudos to you. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and that's why all the videos are small. They're like, they started off anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes, like, because you do one and then you're like, oh, I'll do another one, and then you click the next one. You know what I mean? So it's like, rather than like a 45-minute video is so like daunting for someone to even think about that. It's like, but you could click 3 10-minute ones and then you just did 30 minutes. So it's just like a
I find it so funny. I find it so funny that some people, they'll be like, oh, I only have half hour. I'm not going to get a workout because it's not going to be a good workout. Well, I always said this, even when I was younger, because I go to the gym every day almost, basically 6-7 days a week. Even if I go to just stretch or just walk on the treadmill, I need to go every day because that's what I do. That's my me time. And some days I go on, you can tell I'm not in the mood at all to work out, but I always say a bad workout is better than no workout because at least I showed up. I stuck to my routine. Even if I just stretched, I did it for me and my body and what makes me personally happy. So that's what I always try and do. And now with these kind of the involvement and the increase of videos on YouTube and online spaces, a lot of people are releasing these 8 to 10 minute videos because, I don't want to say back in the day, but let's say maybe 5-10 years ago, if you didn't have an hour to go to the gym, you weren't working out. Oh, you know what? I'll start tomorrow. Well, now you don't need an hour. Do 8 to 10 minutes today. Then maybe tomorrow do 15 minutes. Then maybe do 20. Then do 40, whatever. Keep going. And if you miss one day, it's not the end of the world. You don't have to have an hour workout where it's 10-minute warm up, 45-minute weights, 5-minute cool down. Like, no, get in there. Like you said, just move, do something that releases that PMA. And I've never heard that. I actually love that. I wrote that down. PMA.
So I'm actually like, there's another side of me. I'm actually a drummer in a death metal band. I play in 2 hardcore bands. I'm in a death metal band called Six of Swords. It's a Toronto death metal band. And I was in a hardcore band, a straight edge hardcore band called Total X War. Straight edge within the heavy metal community are people that don't drink or do drugs. And a lot of them are actually vegan. But so PMA actually comes from the hardcore community because it's an old punk hardcore song. You look it up, PMA every day.
Yeah. Dude, what don't you do like this? So you have all of this. You're also running a gym. You're a Nike. I mean, we didn't even get into this. And I want to talk about this because Nike. I have a big affinity for them. They're my favorite brand beyond anything. But so you started this during COVID. You're a Nike master trainer. You have Corktown Lift, and you're in a death metal band. Like, how do you have time for all this?
It's tough. It's tough. I just don't have many friends.
I was literally gonna say, I was like, man, he must still not getting many friends, right? So hasn't played tennis yet. He's got too much free time on his hands.
You know what it comes down to? My social life is the gym. So when I if I'm seeing my clients all day long, my clients are my friends, and I get an hour with them 3 to 5 days a week. You know what I mean? So we get to hang out, we get to chat. I honestly have the best fucking clientele in the world. I love every single one of them. I love every single member of our gym. But my PT clients are like something else. It's like, it's not just like you show up for that hour. It's like, no, we're involved in each other's lives outside of the gym. It's like, I couldn't be more grateful for the clients I have. And they all like each other as well too. And they all hear about each other through me. And I don't know. I'm really stoked on the clientele I have. And that's my social life. And my band is my social life. And honestly, if it wasn't for the heavy, like the hardcore heavy metal community, I don't know if I'd still be sober, because within that community, I found a community that is sober, and I could hang out with all these dudes that are covered in tattoos. Like, if you look at straight edge hardcore dudes, like faces, like my last band, the dudes' whole skulls were covered in tattoos, necks, arms, hands, torsos. There wasn't a bit of skin left in their body. Look at these dudes and you'd be like, they're scary looking dudes, but they don't drink, they don't do drugs, and they're teddy bears. I just found this community of people kind of like misfits. I've always found myself a bit of a misfit, but we all kind of connect through music,
I love that.
Honestly, really, really cool, man. Really, really inspirational. I didn't know we were gonna unpack all this stuff. This is honestly amazing, and the fact that you find the time to do all this is remarkable. One thing I do want to ask is, owning a gym right now, not the situation we're in, all that stuff, but how have you adapted? Obviously now I'm guessing Corktown, the gym is you can't be open through all this. You've had to adapt and all that. Is it? I'm saying you're happy about it, but does it give you some downtime to reassess the business side? Have you evolved to new ways of still being with clients and all that stuff? Like, how's your business adapted, and how do you plan to continue after things get a little bit?
I mean, it goes without saying, obviously it's been tough. You know, like many gyms, businesses have shut down. We're kind of looking at it a way as like, this is like a reset. You know what I mean? It's like, this is our chance to reset the business and open it back up again and how we want it to run. So we look at the business every day, and just kind of reassess what do our roles want to be? Like, what do we want to do? How do we want to better it? How do we create a better experience for people that walk through the door? And like, what do we want to specifically be doing and working towards every day, and our roles itself? So I guess that's kind of been, you know, a good part about it. But you know, I obviously miss people. Like, I've been working in gyms for like 16 whatever years, 17 years. I'm so used to this being my social life. You know, I don't have it. We have a clinic, and that's open right now. So members come through, and my fiance is actually massaging one of the members downstairs right now. But yeah, it's been tough, but I guess it's been a good in a way to be able to look at like your business and what direction you kind of want to take it. I mean, we were looking at spaces on the other side of town before this, like, and we literally looked at other facilities, like multiple ones. If we had opened up at one of those other facilities, if one of those spots had worked out, we would have been bankrupt for sure. So everything happens for a reason, you know. And I've always said that it's been a crazy journey, lots of highs, lots of lows. But I look back at all the lows, and they happen for a reason, you know.
Yeah. How did we kind of skipped over this quickly, but how did you go from, I guess, record breaker, personal trainer at Good Life to gym owner? So you said you were at Good Life for about 4 or 5 years, I think. So yeah. How did the transition happen?
So I left Good Life, and like
Patch was mad, eh?
I don't know how much you can say this, but they don't pay well. Like it's crazy. Like I was one of the highest paid in Canada, and I still look at the percentage, and I was like, they just take your money. Like, it's absolutely wild. And as a business owner now, paying my coaches, I'm like, you get this percentage. You know what I mean? Like, you know, obviously they created the facility. He spent who knows how much, hundreds of millions of creating that facility for that 8,000 people to walk through the door for you to be able to like. So I also see that side as like, I paid X amount of money to create this facility for my coaches to, you know, me hand you clients. But yeah, I basically left, and there was I worked in Liberty Village for years, and that's until I opened up this spot on the East End. Liberty Village was my zone. And so I was a part of the opening crew of the Good Life in Liberty Village. And then there was a gym behind Brazen Head in Liberty Village called King West Fitness. And I went over there, and I was like, hey, I just, as you do in any interview, you'd be like, I just told them, like, this is what I want in terms of a rate. Like, I want to earn this percentage. And it was something like 80. I went over, I'm like, I want 90% of everything. And he's like, 80. And I was like, deal. And I was like, I just made like 30% more. Like, this is awesome. Like, and he thought he was getting a deal. So you always, like with interviews, you obviously always, I hear people in corporate all the time, like that. Let's say someone's making 200 grand. They'll go to an interview and be like, yeah, I currently make 250 grand and I want 300, you know, like, it's what you do. So I went over there, and now I'm making 80%. I was like, this is incredible. So I'm really like avid with saving. I save money like nothing else. Like I don't drink. I don't do any party stuff anymore. So I'll be like for over eight and a half years.
You gotta save your money for those peaches, right?
Gotta get those peaches, you know. Oh man, the first bag of peaches I ever ate was so delicious. I was just like, that commission check, watching people play tennis. It was the best moment of my life. Like, it was so good. I literally bought like 10 peaches and sat in the park, watched people play tennis, and the juice was just all over me like a baby, like drooling. Like, anyway, so I got, back to how I opened up a gym. So I went there, and I was making more money, so I was able to save more money. And then two of our friends opened up Reebok CrossFit in Liberty Village, which is now called Delta. But I went there, negotiated an even better deal. I'd be like, oh, I'll pay you $600 a month cash, and then my clients will pay me. So rather than paying the gym, I'll just give the gym $600. So now they don't know how much I'm making a month, because that was the problem with this other gym. He'd be like, he'd see how much money I'd be bringing in, and I'm making 80% of that, and he's only making 20. He's like, he tried to renegotiate so many times. He'd be like, oh, I got to make more money. You know, you're getting paid too much. And I was like, you signed the line, bro. Like, you can't go back on a contract. I'm sorry. Anyway, that gym went bankrupt. Good Life, the King West Fitness. I showed up to work one day, doors were locked, gym went under. So I went to Reebok CrossFit, worked at my friend's gym, and I was just making more money there. And honestly, it was just saving, just putting money away for a rainy day. Because I knew one day, so when I first came over here, the first girlfriend I ever had, I told her, I was like, one day I'm going to own a gym in Toronto. Like, and this is like 12 years ago. Like when I was just coming from the, you know, coming from like Peaches, watching tennis. I now got my own place. I'm kind of like stepping up, got my first girlfriend. I'm like telling her I'm going to open up a gym. 12 years later, that happened. But yeah, I was just saving. I knew I wanted to open up a gym one day, and I needed to save it. I needed money for that. So my business partner, Greg, was the head coach at this other gym, and he was like 30, and he was making, you know, like with classes, when someone teaches a class in CrossFit gyms, there's an average price you pay a coach, and I knew what it was, and I knew how much he was making per class, and I was kind of like, I'm just sick of making someone else's like pocket rich, you know, like you're only getting paid this much. You're 30 years old. You do all the programming. You run this gym. You're the head trainer. I'm like, don't you want to own your own gym? And he's like, actually, I do. I'm actually talking to some people right now. And I just looked at him. I was like, well, bro, if you're ever interested, I've got a lot of money saved and I'm ready to go. And he was like, interesting. And then we just started chatting, and I literally dumped my life savings. My account went to a big zero. So and saving for me is like my security. When I have money, I feel like just saved, I feel secure. So I went from this massive security blanket to zero. And it was, once again, it was daunting. I was shit scared. Like, I was like, what if this doesn't work out? And I was like, and then I kind of went back through that whole headspace of like, this has to work out. I can't be a failure. Like, you know, people open up business. It's not like I'm Neil Armstrong laying on the, like, you know what I mean? Like I'm not doing something that no one else has done. This is going to work out. Yeah. And it's like, and it has, you know, like we're still here today, nearly 5 years later.
That's good for you. And I mean, it even harkens back to your, like, you know, when you first came to Toronto and to Union Station, like you had nothing. I mean, yeah, when you put your savings in, like you have this tangible thing, but it's not going to grow and work if you don't make it work. So, I mean, you almost, like, you basically put yourself back to being broke and having to fight to make this work. I mean, most companies, a lot of work build it up to go back down to where they were. I mean, good for you for taking that chance.
And I did it again. So I bought a pre-construction condo last year, and yeah, account went down to zero again, and it was scary, man. Like, it's scary. Like I went negative. Like, I went in the negatives. Because COVID hit, and now I've got to make the fourth payment. Like, I'm like, what is going on? Like, I was so scared. But I actually, for the first time, never asked anyone for anything. But I was short some money, like for the fourth payment of this pre-construction condo I bought. And I'm telling you, when I say I have the best clients in the world, I have the best clients in the world. So one day I was like, I have no idea. I don't think I can make this final payment. And literally the next day, this is when the gym was still open. This whole talk of COVID was going on. My client rocks up next day, hands me a check. And I was like, what's this? And I looked at it. I looked at the amount. I was like, holy crap. I was like, what's this for? And she's like, you're saying you can't make the last payment. She's like, here's the last payment. And she goes, I talked to my dad, and like, they're a very wealthy family, but just very generous at the same time. And she's like, yeah, she goes, you don't have to pay him back any interest. Just make him payments every month until you pay him back, and yeah, we just want to help you out. You've helped me out so much. And this is, it was just, I've never had anyone do that. I've never asked for anything in my life. I've made everything on my own. But like, I just felt like crying, like then and there, because once again, I felt defeated as a man, because I'm like, I said I was going to buy this condo, and now I don't have the money for it. I'm a failure. And I have this thing about being a failure. I'm just defeated as a human being. It's like, and then like she gave me the ability to like not fail, so it was like, it was such a really precious moment that I'll never forget in my life.
You say fear of failure, but I think it's more, you almost refuse to fail. Like, you think about, you hit rock bottom in Toronto, the days where you got no money in your pocket. Instead of accepting that you've got no money, you've got nothing to do, you worked 15 hours a day at Good Life to make that commission. Then you dump all your money into the gym, and COVID hits, and you still refuse to fail. Keep going, keep plugging through. And sometimes, yeah, you need to be good to be lucky and lucky to be good. But that refusal to fail, I guess what I'm saying is that's what makes the type of person you are. You're not just going to lay down and let life take over. You're going to fight back, and you've been doing a good job of it.
Yeah, I always said, if this didn't work out in Toronto, plan B is I'm going to go home, move to Byron Bay, and become a surf bum the rest of my life. But then in the back of my head, that's failing. Like, I can't do that. That's retirement.
Well, I mean, actually, that's funny you bring that up, because I wanted to circle back to this. So you're saying now you might have moved back to go surf. So you moved here to snowboard. Do you snowboard at all? Or
I literally had that same question too.
Oh, yeah. So I lived in Whistler for 6 months. Now, can you imagine living in Whistler for 6 months, snowboarding 4 to 6 hours every day? Within 3 weeks, I was riding the blue park, hitting jumps, rails, and then I started to hit extra large jumps. And I'm extreme, and I had a huge set of cojones. I was 21. Like now I'm like, I don't know if I want to hit a jump, because I might break my ankle and not be able to squat. Like, I couldn't care less about broken bones when I was a kid. I broke it a lot. But now I'm like, I'll go and cruise, and like, I can still hit jumps, but I'm not gonna be hitting rails. I've spinaled myself so many times on rails. Like, I'm not doing that at 36. I don't recover like a 20-year-old anymore.
Yeah. Well, Rick, it's funny. So Rick and I, like, we actually, I'm a big snowboarder. Rick skis. That's like a dream. Like, we were actually planning our podcast. We actually had a deal lined up to kind of do a West Coast like circuit. We were gonna go to Banff, up to like Sun Valley, and then probably go down to Whistler. Obviously, COVID now canceled that, but we've been like dying to go hit the mountains. There's no snow in Toronto. Can't even go to Blue Mountain. It's.
So do you know much about like snowboarders? Like, do you know who Mark McMorris is?
Yeah. Very, very familiar.
Okay. Crazy story here. I don't know if you see, but I've been coaching Shawn Mendes for years now. So Mark McMorris. So when I first got signed, shout out to Mark McMorris, you're a G. So when I first got signed to, and me and him, we're good friends. So when I first got signed with Nike, they're like, oh, we're trying to sign on this athlete, Mark McMorris. I was like, yeah, of course I know who Mark McMorris is. They're like, he's in Toronto. Do you want to train him? I'm like, yeah, sure. Why not? So like that, one of the guys that recruits all the athletes for Nike came down, a couple other people from head office, and they're like, yeah, come. They're like told Mark that we're going to go to like one of the Nike trainers gyms and like train him. So I trained all of them, had a great sesh. Mark followed, like he posted some stuff about me on Instagram and whatever. We followed each other. And then I was like, bro, anytime, and he was with couple of his boys, like X Games presenters were here as well. I was like, anytime you boys are in town, honestly, hit me up and like, we'll hit a sesh up. So then every time Mark was in town, a couple times, like 4 to 5 times a year, he'd come in, I'd train him and whoever he was with. And then I got to know Craig McMorris, his brother. And then Craig came with him one time. Then when Craig came into town, he was in. Anyway, one day I obviously became tight with these boys. And Mark's like at X Games, like 24 medals or whatever, Olympic. Like I can't even tell you his drive. Like, it's nuts. He nearly killed himself in Whistler. 10 months later, he gets silver in the Olympics. Like, yeah, it's messed up. Anyway, so one day I got a text message. It was like a group message from Mark, and it was Mark and like a couple other people, and it was like, hey, Justin, meet Josh. meet Justin. Josh is like he's one of the best trainers in Toronto. You and Sean are gonna love him. And then I was like, so I messaged Mark on the side. I was like, oh, thanks, Mark. Who's Justin and Sean? Are they some of your snowboard buddies? Like, they're coming into the gym. I just want to know who I'm training. He's like, Sean Mendez is a good friend of mine, and Justin's his manager. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'll go on Google. I'm like, Sean Mendez, because I didn't know who he was. and then he was coming in the next day. And then I was like, oh, shit. And then Sean came in, and like, honestly, he's the rat. Like, I've learned so much from him. And the only reason I'm into meditating, breathing, and all this sort of stuff is from him. Sean will be like, yo, cause I'll send him a message every morning. I'm like, how you feeling today? Like, to get his energy. And then like, I'll create a workout based off that. And then he'll just be like, yo, have you read this book? Have you done this? Have you checked out this? Cause he has like crazy coaches in every kind of, and I'm like, no, but I'll get into that just from him. And he's just such a solid person. So the reason I'm training Sean is because Mark McMorris text introed me to his manager. It's just nuts how it all works out,
Yeah. But you know what? It's that idea that like good energy and good people attract good people. Exactly. If you weren't such a good person, again, I'm not taking away from your training ability, but there's hundreds and thousands of good trainers all around the world. But it's because you're such a good person, you have good energy, you refuse to fail, that, Mark's like, it's Sean, you got to train with Josh. You have to train with them. Right?
It's also the vibe of like when you're with someone, it's like, training for me is in coaching people is much more than the hour that they spend in here. It's about creating a relationship with that human so they trust you. And obviously Sean, for someone like Sean to trust me is such like a, what's the word? Like, it's a huge deal to me because a lot of people can abuse his trust, with certain things that like, he'll send me photos of himself or whatever, like, it's just like stuff like that could leak, certain things he says to me could leak out, and like people just abuse his relationship. It's messed up.
Well, personal trainers, you're part-time personal trainer, part-time therapist, part-time best friend, a little bit all under that umbrella of personal training.
Yeah. The amount every girl that I train has definitely cried in front of me, and we've had a therapy session, but that therapy session is just me listening. But every single girl I train has cried.
Cried from the workout, or just cried because they open up?
Just some boyfriend experience, or like they'll come into the gym and then they'll just start crying. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe you might have trained a couple of my exes. I don't know.
Well, I will tell you, man, like, your persona, I mean, this is obviously the first time we've all met. I mean, you definitely are. You come off as a very friendly person. Seeing you on Instagram, I'm like, this guy's scary as shit. He's huge. He does all these things. Like, this guy seems so intimidating. But I mean, I can kind of saying that. I mean, you're very personable, man, and it's your energy is really cool. So it's been
so social media is a funny thing. Like it's it's funny to like think of like how other people can perceive you to be, because I'm such an in-person kind of guy, and that's why I don't put a lot of attention into my own social media. Like I just put things out there, and like, it is what it is. Like a photographer will shoot me while I'm training, and I'll just post those pics up. But like I don't post a lot of personal stuff about my own personal life or conversations like this, and people don't see that other side. It's just like, this is what I'm lifting, this is who I'm training, and it's business. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's how we do this too, right? We started this podcast. I mean, Rick and I have been best friends for over a decade. I met at university, but beginning of 2020, before this pandemic, we said, let's start a podcast and just talk to cool people that we think are doing really interesting things, who have good energy, and just fun people, like just interesting people. And I mean, you came across as interesting just because of what you did. I mean, you kind of blew us out of the water far and away, way more interesting than we would have even anticipated. So it's cool for us to see this side of you. And I'm sure, you have a pretty big reputation in Toronto. So I'm sure a lot of other people are going to be kind of really happy to see this side as well, because that's what we try to get to. We want to know more about people's story and what shapes them, what drives them, why they don't want to fail and all that. So really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm 100%. I'm an open book in person. I mean, on social media, I'm not as open, but I don't know. I just don't want to sit down there all day and think about like what I need to post. You know what I mean? Like I just put out there the necessary stuff for business, and then But in person, all my clients know me on a very personal level, you know?
Yeah, and that's what's important, right? Being personable in real life, not just on social media. A lot of times people get so caught up with, I need to be this person on social media. Meanwhile, you meet them in person and they're completely different, right? Josh, before we do start to wrap up, first I want to say I wish we had this in person because your energy and your vibe, we got to get you into the studio once things start to open up again, because it'd be a pleasure to sit down and even do this all over again and do a round two, I guess. But one more question I had: what's your onboarding process for new clients? I can imagine you're super swamped. So do you accept everybody, or is there certain requirements that people need, or what's the onboarding process?
I don't really have like a specific one, but if someone messages me for training, I just like to know people's goals. Number one, what are their goals? And is that something that I can help with and that I'm passionate about? Meaning like someone's like, I want to be a professional Olympic lifter. I'm like, well, that's not me. Like I don't do that. I can coach it, but I'm not. I'll find you someone else. Like if someone has some sort of like disability or injury, that's something that I don't feel like I do as good a job as my fiance because she's a therapist, then I'd be like, well, this person would probably be better suited for you. So it's kind of like I know what I'm really good at and what excites me, and I want to be excited and really get along with the person as well. So that's number one. That might be just like a text. Number two, I'll get them in. And then, and honestly, it's just all vibes. Like, it's just, do I get along with this person? Do I think I can get along with this person? Because I'm going to be spending anywhere from 3 to 5 hours a week with this human. Like, I don't want to not enjoy my time or them enjoy their time with me. Like, can we connect? Like, and that's the biggest thing for me. It's just like connection,
I love that.
Yeah, I might have to after this pandemic, I might have to hit you up. Ricky's the fit one between the two. I mean, I consider myself athletic, but Ricky's definitely the athlete. I might have to hit you up for some sessions so I can keep up with him as we get older.
Man, why did you ask the question? I'm thinking here, I'm like, man, I want to come and hang out with you once or twice a week for a couple hours to work out. Like,
yeah. Obviously, the third one is like people have to be able to afford it. So, that's.
Of course.
It's not very affordable for a lot of people,
No, of course. Well, George, you got anything else?
No, I mean this has been a blast. I had a lot of fun. Great energy for Saturday. I want to go work out right now.
That's what I said. I had my workout in before, but even before you signed on, I was even telling George, I'm like, I know for sure as soon as this episode's done, I'm gonna be ready to like run through a wall and get a good workout. So I'm gonna go for round two. But Josh, we want to thank you for taking the time to come on the podcast with us. Like Georgie said earlier, it's definitely amazing to see a different side of people that you don't get to normally see, especially someone like yourself that has that strong and very tough persona online, to see a different side of you that, people might not have known, that you've got that soft side. You've struggled through adversity and you made it to where you've made it to where you are now, which is it's super exciting and people will be inspired by it. So thank you. Before we wrap up, we've got 2 questions we always ask every guest. The first, if there was a movie about your life, who would you want to star as you?
The Rock. Just
Love
because
it.
he's a beast of a man. Like, I'm not saying I am The Rock by any means. Like, he's just like, I honestly look up to people that, I'm not saying he's me, but I just look up to him so much. He's a solid businessman. He's a solid family man. And he's an incredible athlete. And anyone that can succeed in all those 3 areas of life, like if you can be a kick-ass dad, business partner, and athlete at the same time, that's some serious juggling going on. Plus, like his work, what he does, like obviously I aspire to him rather than him playing my life. But yeah, whatever. I guess that's that backwards,
Yeah.
Love it.
I can see that. The last question is, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
I don't know. Yeah. Like, younger self, how young are we talking?
What? Hey, that's up to you. However you feel.
I don't know. That's such a hard one. Do people get stumped on this?
More, yeah. But different people get stumped on different ones. Some people get stumped on Ricky's. Some people get stumped on mine. I mean, listen, it's entirely subjective. It's up to you. It's whatever you want to tell at any point in your life. I mean, it could be to young people coming up, and I mean, whatever comes to mind.
I would say honestly, okay, to myself before I got into the fitness industry, I was in a very dark place. And I was struggling to get out. Like I just didn't know how to get out. So I would say, don't worry. Like, it's going to present itself. The option for you and the path for you is going to come very soon. Just like, stay positive.
Good advice.
Love it.
Love that.
Josh, if people want to find out more about you, everything you're doing, where should they go? How can they find you?
I guess the easiest platform would be Instagram, which is Aussie_fit.
Perfect. So we'll make sure we tag everything, all your socials, the website, and everything in the comments and in the caption below. But Josh, thank you again for coming on. You're an absolute gem of a guy. And once all this COVID stuff starts to wrap up a little bit, hopefully soon, we'll get you in the studio where me and George might come by for a workout or something, because you got great energy. I think I speak for George as well when we say you seem like someone we want to be around, and hopefully get in some good lifts or something.
Yeah, I love it, boys. Appreciate you having me.